Hey, how's everybody doing? It's All Music with Todd Ledbetter. 1986 is the year that we're in. We have covered quite a few years, and up to this point, they've been pretty good ones. This is a very unusual year as well. 85 was kind of tough for me, and 1986 has proven to be a little bit interesting as well. Uh, you know, Kind of sticking within the realm of the music that I was that I'm familiar with, and also the music that I was interested in and am interested in is where I'm going with this for this year and really every year, because there's a lot of albums that I just don't have a lot of history with, that maybe other people might have liked in certain years, in certain genres and things like that, that I just never really got into. But I mean, universally, these are pretty well accepted albums. Without getting into like subgenres and real specific areas of styles of music. These are kind of the broad acceptance of what people were listening to, what people liked, and I'm definitely right in there with them. Although I do have my little pet bands that I like over the years. None of these are those. These are all pretty much ones that I think universally people are going to feel pretty good about and can understand where I'm coming from with these. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the number six band, because it's my top six for 1986, and this is the number six album from 1986, the Beastie Boys, "Licensed to Ill," and their debut album. I mean, this thing was crazy big, and a lot of fun too. Just seeing like three white Jewish kids rapping with all kinds of beats from Zeppelin to who to all kinds of stuff. They took beats from just a ton of different songs and different licks from different songs, and just put it into really something that was quite impressive. And despite haters that maybe at the time, this album has definitely lasted the test of time, as far as its appeal and its critical praise, I do believe. And you got things like Rhythm and Stealin', New Style, She's Crafty, uh, let's see, Posse and Effects, Slow Ride, Girls, a lot of fun songs. Girls is fun. Fight for Your Right. Well, I used to play that song back in the day. No Sleep Till Brooklyn. One of their big hits, of course. Paul Revere. Hold It Now, Hit It. Brass Monkey. Everybody knows that one. Slow and Low and Time to Ill. It's a really good album for its time, especially, but it really holds its appeal even today, for the and kind of crossover. Not just rappers, but rockers like it, just all kinds of people. I mean, it gets played on the radio all the time. It's very wide, has a wide appeal, but definitely one of those albums that ranked pretty darn high. Let's see what it says a bit here about License to Ill as far as Wikipedia goes. It says License to Ill is the debut studio album by the American hip hop group Beastie Boys. It was released November 15th, 1986 by Def Jam and Columbia Records. It became the first rap LP to top the Billboard charts, the album charts. It is one of Columbia Records' fastest selling debut records to date, and was certified diamond by the Recording Industry Association of America in 2015 for shipping over 10 million copies in the United States alone. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Uh, let's see. It goes on to talk about. Let's see. They had one name for the album. I'm not going to really go into that, but then they had to change it because it was a little bit inappropriate. Let's see. The critical reception. In 1998, the album was selected as one of the Source's 100 best rap albums. It's the only album by Jewish hip hop act to receive 5 mics from the Source. In 2003, the album was ranked number 217 on Rolling Stone magazine's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. That's pretty impressive. And 219 in 2012. Let's see. In 2013, the magazine named it the best debut album of all time. Wow. Okay, well there you go. So that's just a little bit of information about that. They've got a whole sample credits here. Of like Rhythm and Stealin'. They took drum beat from When the Levee Breaks from Led Zeppelin. They did some Sweet Leaf by Black Sabbath. I Fought the Law by The Clash. Each song has all kinds of stuff. There's She's Crafty as the Ocean. Dare, 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 dare. It's funny how some rappers that hear these songs but have never heard, or how some rap songs they use popular songs from years past, and when people hear the real song, they're like, "Whoa, I can't believe that! That's where that came from." It's pretty cool. There's yeah, so that's my number 6 pick, License to Ill by the Beastie Boys. Really, I guess there's no denying that album's greatness, really. Well, let's get to number 5 in my all-time, or not my all-time, it's my 1986 top 6, not all-time for sure. And this album here is one of my favorite bands. Good album. I liked it at the time. Not my favorite from this band. Genesis, Invisible Touch. Definitely getting into a more poppy, commercialized, endeavor by the band. Very Phil Collins driven, in my opinion. Even though not all the songs were written by Phil Collins, but also still hanging on to some of their proggy roots for sure in this album. But like Invisible Touch, hit, pop hit, Tonight Tonight Tonight, pop hit, Land of Confusion, big hit on MTV. Into Deep, another big hit. Anything She Does, Domino's got the great, it's just a great prog song. Throwing It All Away was a big hit, and The Brazilian is still one of, at this point had become one of their live songs that they would play all the time. It's great proggy, Genesis style, early Genesis style song. So definitely a good album. I liked this album a lot when it came out. I was kind of into this. This is what was popular then. And there's no denying the videos were interesting on MTV at the time. A lot of fun. Tonight, Tonight, Tonight. Every time I hear it, it reminds me of the Michelob commercial, because they use that song in a Michelob commercial. Land of Confusion was that big MTV hit. Into Deep, I really like that song. And then Domino, Part 1 and 2 was also a big concert song for them, live to play. They still play that, or they did for a long time. That was a big concert hit. So very fun, for sure, album. It's probably the last album of Genesis that, no, it's not true. I can't say that it was the last album I got into of theirs when it came out, because their last album that they did with their new singer, or their third singer, Ray Wilson, I really got into, and I liked it a lot, even though there was a lot of controversy about that particular album. Let's see what we got here. Invisible Touch is the 13th studio album by the English rock band Genesis, released June 6, 1986 by Atlantic Records in the United States, and the 9th of June by Charisma and Virgin Records in the United Kingdom. After taking a break in the group's activity for each member to continue with their solo projects, in 1984, the band reconvened in 1985 to write and record Invisible Touch with engineer and producer Hugh Padgham. As with their previous album, it was written entirely through the group's innovations and no material developed prior to its recording. So it was a group endeavor. So I kind of said it was Phil Collins heavy, but I think you know what I mean. Any kind of Genesis fan understands what I'm saying there. Invisible Touch was a worldwide success and reached #1 in the UK album charts and #3 on the US Billboard 200. It remains the band's highest selling album after it was certified multi-platinum for over 1.2 million copies sold in the UK and 6 million sold in the US. Genesis became the first band and foreign act to have 5 top 5 singles in the Billboard Top 100, with Invisible Touch being the first and only song to reach #1 on the charts. The album received mixed reviews upon its release, and retrospectively, with several reviews, both positive and negative, observing its similarity to that's what I'm saying, observing its similarities to Collins' solo records and their commercial pop-oriented sound. In 2007, the album was re-released with new stereo and 5.1 sound mixes. Okay, yeah, so that's what I was saying. It's just kind of, it does definitely has that Phil Collins pop solo feel to it. But definitely good album. Still, the band was just the three of them: Tony Banks on keyboards, Phil Collins drums, lead vocals, percussions, and Mike Rutherford bass and guitars. I really like Mike Rutherford. He's a little bit of the unsung hero in Genesis. His bass playing is really killer, especially some of his early stuff. And then he really stepped up after Steve Hackett left to play guitar and kind of found his groove, I think, with that. But he always played guitar. He was a fabulous 12-string guitar player, and he was playing from the very first album guitar, with Anthony Phillips, and then later with Steve Hackett. So yeah, definitely a good album. I like it a lot. Like I said, not my favorite Genesis album, but all the songs you recognize. Every song you pretty much know. There's no denying that. The only ones you might not know are the ones that were like their kind of more proggy ones that they played in concert, like Domino and whatever that other one was I said. But super good. That's my number 5, Genesis Invisible Touch for 1986. I mean, it was kind of a sign of the times. Their biggest selling album ever, So what can you say? How can you deny that, really? All right, so let's go to number 4 for 1986. Here, I think we all remember this one. Paul Simon, Graceland. Remember when this thing came out? Very cool album. Just innovative, something very different, I think, for the ears. I think everybody was able to kind of grab onto this album and enjoy it quite a bit. The Boy in the Bubble, Graceland was a big hit, like that bass line, that bass line in the song, and I think that was the one. I can't remember if it was that one or You Can Call Me Al was the one where the video had. Gosh, I always draw blanks. Right, I could picture. What's the the actor's name, comedian guy? I'm drawing a blank. Chevy Chase. Yeah, I remember Chevy Chase was in one of those videos. I can't remember which one, but funny. Yeah, so super good. Just a lot of rhythms and kind of African rhythms and harmonies and backing vocal stuff. Very cool. Very cool album. Love it a lot. And he went on to, have even more success after that, which is very neat. Let's see what it says a little bit about Graceland here. It's the 7th solo album by the American singer-songwriter Paul Simon. It was produced by Simon, engineered by Roy Hale, and released August 25th, 1986 by Warner Brothers. In the early 80s, Simon's relationship with the former musical partner Art Garfunkel had deteriorated. His marriage to actress Carrie Fisher had collapsed, and his previous record, Hearts and Bones, 1983, had been a commercial failure. 1984, after a period of depression, Simon became fascinated with the bootleg cassettes of South African township music. He and Hale visited Johannesburg, where they spent 2 weeks recording with South African musicians. Let's see, recorded in 1985 and 86, Graceland features an eclectic mix of genres, including pop rock, a cappella, zydeco, a few other African names that I can't pronounce. Simon created a new composition inspired by the recordings made in Johannesburg, collaborating with African and American artists. He received criticism for breaking the cultural boycott imposed by South Africa because of its policy of apartheid. Very interesting. Following its completion, Simon toured alongside South African musicians performing their music and songs from Graceland. Graceland became Simon's most popular or most successful studio album and the highest charting album in over a decade. It is estimated to have sold up to 16 million copies worldwide and lauded by critics. Won the 1987 Grammy Awards for Album of the Year, and it frequently cited as one of the best albums of all time. I say I don't read these things prior to doing this. I just, I just find it interesting that when I pick an album and it's got this kind of praise, it's a little bit, feels good that I'm not like just swinging in the dark, although, well, like I started this whole session out with, it's very diverse in genres and things like that. And I do have a bit of an eclectic, and you'll see things are going to progress a little bit here on my list and different styles, but very cool album, whether you're a metalhead or, a pop icon or a pop lover or just rap music or whatever. I think a lot of people can get into the rhythms and style of this music. So let's see. In 2006, it was added to the United States National Recording Registry as culturally, historically, and aesthetically important. Well, I'd say so. I mean, breaking the apartheid and all that, it's pretty historical. Yeah, so that's just a little bit about that album. Let's see. It looks like Linda Ronstadt was featured on the album on Under African Skies, and she was criticized. I'm not going to get into all that. That's just a bunch of political stuff that I'm not really want as part of the channel and all that kind of stuff. Politics is stupid. I mean, it's you know where we're at. It's crazy. Anyways, let's move on to number 3. And, here's the perfect example of my point of, having, diverse tastes in music. Even though, I'm going from Beastie Boys to Genesis, the poppiest Genesis album ever, even though I'm a proggy Genesis guy, and then Paul Simon. And then we move right into, what's undeniable. Metallica, Master of Puppets. This thing was a great album. You want to rock, this album will get you there. Battery, Master of Puppets, great song. The Things That Should Not Be, Welcome Home, Disposable Heroes. That's an amazing song. It's a sad song, and very poignant lyrically. Great. Leopard Messiah, Orion, and Damage Inc. Super great album. Love it. I'm pretty big. I'm not a huge Metallica fan, and I kind of came to them late, I would definitely say. I didn't get into their, Kill 'Em All and all that stuff at the time. For whatever reason, I don't really have any reasons why I can't, just the way life takes you and the things you're into at the time. But I like a lot of their later releases too, that some people like Hardwired. I think that was 2017 release, and oh my God, talk about a killer heavy metal album. That thing is so progressive too. It's got so much going on in that album. It's just for your ears, because I like to be challenged a little bit sometimes with music, and really their Hardwire album definitely did that. But from here 1986 all the way to 2017, yes, they're Metallica, and yes, their music definitely progressed in a lot of ways, and they kind of went like this. They did all kinds of stuff. They got crap for stuff, and one thing I thought was funny was I always kind of think about, and sometimes I bring it up in conversation, like I am right now, when the whole uh, uh, what do you call it? File sharing and Napster, all that was going on before streaming became the norm. Uh, you know, uh, they were instrumental in fighting against it, and going to court. And I'm drawing a blank on the drummer's name right now. As I do, I draw blanks. Let's see if I can actually grab the Wikipedia so I can just see the names, because I'm retarded sometimes with that stuff. Um, yeah, Lars Ulrich. Yeah, duh. God, I don't have any of this scripted. I just go blind. I pick my albums and then I just go. So I forget stuff. I can't bring it up. Anyways, remember when he was in court over the whole file sharing and Napster and all that stuff, and people came down on him hard because they wanted their free music. They wanted to just not have to pay for it. And it turned out, I mean, he said that it's going to ruin the industry, and it did. It changed it for a lot of people. Some people will argue the point that streaming music gives you know more access to other bands that don't have record contracts and all that. But I think with technology being what it was, and home studios and things like that, I think that would have happened anyways. Um, and I think there's definitely a better way to handle the streaming so the artists actually profit. But it's always been the case with the music industry. The artist is always a lot of times is the one that loses. I mean, they're always getting ripped off by the management and the record companies and whatever else. And nothing's really changed there. You have to really know the music business in order to make your money, which is a sad thing. I don't want to get into all that, but too late. I did. Let's see. Let's see a little bit what Masters of Puppet was all about. It's the third studio album by the American heavy metal band Metallica, released March 3rd, 1986 by Elektra Records. Recorded at Sweet Silence Studio with producer Flemming Rasmussen. It was the band's last album to feature bassist Cliff Burton, who died in a bus accident in Sweden during the album's promotional tour. Very sad. The album's artwork, designed by Metallica and Peter Mensch and painted by Don somebody, depicts a cemetery field filled with white crosses tethered to strings, manipulated by a pair of hands in the bloody red sky. Instead of releasing a single or a video in advance of the album's release, Metallica embarked on a 5-month American tour in support of Ozzy Osbourne. The European leg was canceled after Burton's death in September 1986, and the band returned home to audition new bassists. Let's see, Master of Puppets peaked at number 29 on the Billboard 200 and received widespread acclaim from critics who praised the music as music and political lyrics. Today it is widely considered to be one of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time, and is credited with consolidating the American thrash metal scene. It was certified 6 times platinum in 2003 for shipping 6 million copies in the United States, and was later certified 6 times platinum by Music Canada and gold by the BPI. In 2015, Master of Puppets became the first metal recording to be selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the National Recording Registry for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. Oh, same as Graceland and Paul Simon. Interesting there, huh? I guess those two have that in common. Very cool album. Let's see. Yeah, so you got the last album with Cliff Burton, killer bass player. You got James Hetfield, Kirk Hammond on lead guitar at this point, Lars Ulrich on drum as always, Jason Newsted bass, backing vocals. It's not, I guess, a bonus track that they had put together on this album. I'm not really sure about that, but yeah. So you got your first appearance of Jason. Yeah, that's a whole other story with Jason, kind of the way they treated him. And that's, I don't know, I think maybe sometimes why people have a weird feeling about Metallica. But nevertheless, definitely a good album, critically acclaimed. Nothing to sneeze about. unless you got to sneeze. All right, so that brings us to number two, 1986. Yeah, so this band, definitely a huge band at the time with a ton of personnel troubles. And they seem to have worked it out for a period of a number of years, and that band is affectionately known as Van Halen. 5150. I thought this album was great. Definitely rockin'. Definitely had a lot of keyboards. You know, I like the keyboards, but also I've been a long time Sammy Hagar fan. And you know, when this album came out, I think a lot of people were like, "Hell yeah, good job." A lot of people are, you know, it's the same thing with a lot of bands. You know, you're in. Some people like to be in a camp. You know, they want to be in this camp or they want to be in that camp, and they want to just, you know, fight for stupid stuff. Great music though. I mean, this had some really great hits. Good Enough, Why Can't This Be Love, Get Up, Dreams. All those were great songs. Summer Nights, another good song. Best of Both Worlds, great song. Love Walks In, great song. 5150, Inside, all great songs. This is a great album from start to finish. There's no denying 9 songs that were really, really good, all on one album. Loved it. Super good. Let's see. 5150 is the 7th studio album by American hard rock band Van Halen, released on March 24th, 1986 by Warner Brothers. It was the first album of 4 albums to be recorded with lead singer Sammy Hagar, who replaced David Lee Roth. The album was named after Eddie Van Halen's home studio, 5150, in turn named after the California law enforcement term for a mentally disturbed person. Might explain a few things. A reference to Section 5150 of the California Welfare and Institution Code. The 5150 name has been used several times by Van Halen. The album hit number 1 in the Billboard 200 charts, surpassing the band's previous album, 1984, which was a great album as well, which had peaked at number 2 behind Michael Jackson's Thriller album. I guess it would have been number 1 if Michael Jackson didn't have that album, huh? Which Eddie Van Halen made a guest appearance on that Thriller album, by the way, if you remember that lead. And I don't remember if it was Billie Jean or what it was, but he played lead guitar there in that. I remember the lead starts with the knocking on the guitar. It's like tick 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 tick, and then he just goes off. So very cool. Very cool album. Loved Sammy Hagar. Still think Sammy Hagar's a freaking awesome guy. He's super cool. I like to watch his. I even mentioned his show on Access TV. He has a show that he interviews people, and he's great. I love his other bands after this, and with all the turmoil and Michael Anthony getting kicked out of the band and Wolfgang coming in and replacing him, Eddie's son, and then Sammy and Anthony, kept on rocking together and doing all kinds of stuff. And just, I think that was really cool of those two to, have each other's back, amongst what must be very, very difficult, to be, in a not just a creative endeavor, but, a business venture with somebody, and then just kind of, just wiped out, just say, no, you're gone. I don't want you. It's just, fired basically. And for who knows what reasons, just probably childish reasons. And I've seen a lot of stuff with the battles between David and Sammy and all that, and the silliness that goes on there. But God, I don't know. Very cool album though. And that brings us to my number 1 album, which was just a fantastic album as well. And I think this might be the first time that I have 2 different lead singers that were 2 different people in the same year that were lead singers for the same band at one time and were in the band together at one time. So they were in the band together. Let me just show you who it is so we know what we're talking about. Peter Gabriel. So, great album. So Peter Gabriel was in Genesis in the early years for 5 albums or so. And Phil Collins was in the band for 4 of those albums, I do believe. Maybe 3, 4. Very instrumental at that point. Once Phil Collins came in, the band started really, really pumping up and getting more and more acclaim. He brought a lot to the table. And then here they are, uh, having, well, Phil Collins is with Genesis. It's not a solo album, but still, both in the chart here and having great success in the same year with their album. This was a great album. Loved it when it came out. And then remember, was it Red Rain that was in that movie? Forget what the movie was, but with John Cusack holding up the radio, holding up the thing, playing. Was it Red Rain? I think it was Red Rain. Oh no, it was In Your Eyes. I think it was In Your Eyes. Great song too. But yeah, Red Rain, Sledgehammer, huge MTV hit. Don't Give Up. That's a beautiful, beautiful song. I think it was Kate Bush that sang a lot on this album. Kate Bush, I think it was the backing vocalist. And I remember hearing Peter. Somebody asked him, "Why do you always have women?" Because he had Sinead O'Connor, I think, in the next album, Us, maybe it was, do a lot of backing vocals. And he says, "Why do you have uh, all these backing are these female backing vocalists or female vocalists with prominent parts in your music?" He goes, "Well, because who wants to hear my voice the whole album?" Well, I do. I like his voice, but it's cool. I like the way he integrates the female vocals into the music, and very, very cool for sure. Um, but let's get back to that, and let's just go through the song list real quick. So Red Rain, Sledgehammer, Don't Give Up, great song. That Voice Again, Mercy Street, Big Time is a big hit too. Uh, we Do What We're Told. This Is the Picture, and In Your Eyes. Love that song, In Your Eyes. It's a really, really, really good album. Top notch, Peter Gabriel, and it's just good to see him have success. And I find it interesting that he, pretty much he quit Genesis and could have come back at any time if he wanted, any time. And his first couple albums weren't super super huge commercial hits for him, and yet Genesis was picking up steam. But he stuck with his guns. He stuck with his convictions. For whatever reason, he left. I mean, I think creatively, he was theatrical on stage, and that kind of bothered Genesis at the time when he would dress in the fox, mask and the red dress and all and the flower costume and the kooky like whatever some of those costumes were, the old man, and I just don't. And he was getting a lot of press for that, in Europe. And it was, like, what is Peter going to show up in this time, and not so much press about the music. And they were super, anal about their music at the time. They would have just been an instrumental band if Phil Collins didn't step up. They were just considering releasing their next album instrumentally. That's what they were going to do. And they tried to find singers, and they even talked about it. But I mean, and even you hear stories about when they're writing the songs, and all of a sudden Peter will come in and they're playing some piece, and all of a sudden Peter starts singing, and they're like, "Oh no, don't start singing." But so I just think it was a little bit of creative differences, and he just stuck to it. Well, my point is he stuck to his guns. He just held on to that integrity. It's like, you know what? If you don't like what I'm doing, then that's fine. I'm just going to go and do what I want. And to great success, to his credit. He's definitely a very, very talented individual, and he seems like a sweet guy, and is a very thoughtful man. And I've never seen him, out of line or out of place or speak harshly. He's always very controlled, and even if he is, being critical, it's still it's in an appropriate way. So I like that about Peter Gabriel. Super, super great album. Uh, let's see what Wikipedia says about it, instead of just hearing me ramble on. No, that's not that. That's 5150. Okay, so is the fifth studio album by English singer-songwriter Peter Gabriel, released May 19th, 1986 by Charisma Records. After working on this, sorry about that. Let's see. After working on the soundtrack to the film Birdie, 1984, producer Daniel Lanois was invited to remain at Gabriel's home during 1985 to work on the next solo project. Daniel Lanois is great. He worked a lot with U2 as well, and he's got lots of his own solo albums. Very, very talented person as well. So, initial sessions for So consisted of Gabriel, Lanois, and guitarist David Rhodes, although these grew to include a number of percussionists. Although Gabriel continued to use the pioneering Fairlight CMI digital sampling synthesizer, songs from these sessions were less experimental than his previous material. Nevertheless, Gabriel drew on various musical influences, fusing pop, soul, art rock with elements of traditional world music, particularly African, which is funny because, well, South African, if that's different, and Brazilian styles. It is Gabriel's first non-posthumous album. So representing the anti-title that resulted from the label pressure to properly market his music. Oh, because so many of his albums didn't have like titles. We could, there's that one with the scratch, and there's just weird. People give the album nicknames, for what the album cover looks like. Gabriel toured So on the way up. Towards So on the This Way Up tour, 1986-1987, with some songs performed at human rights and charity concerts during this period. Often considered his best and most accessible album, So was an immediate commercial success and transformed Gabriel from a cult artist, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier, to a mainstream artist, absolutely, becoming his best-selling solo album. It has been certified fivefold platinum and triple platinum by the British industry. The album's lead single, Sledgehammer, was promoted with an innovative animated music video and achieved particular success, reaching #1 on the Billboard's Hot 100 and subsequently winning the record of 9 MTV Music Awards. If you remember that Sledgehammer video, it was like a claymation thing. I think that was the claymation one. Pretty cool. At the same time that Genesis Invisible Touch they had that puppet one. It's kind of interesting how they kind of were very innovative with MTV, both groups. It was followed by 4 further singles. Don't Give Up, love that, with Kate Bush, a duet with Kate Bush. So it's not like she was backing vocals, it was a duet, and that's what I was saying Kate earlier about having her singing on the album. And then Big Time, In Your Eyes, and Red Rain. So it goes on about Grammy Awards. And oh wait, let me read it because I see Paul Simon here. Let's see. The album received positive reviews from most critics who praised its songwriting, melodies, and fusion of genres, although some retrospect reviews have criticized its over commercialism and 1980s production sound. Yeah, well, there's a little bit of that going on. I don't think it's as bad as some others, like I talked about before, those gated drums and stuff like that. But So was nominated for the Grammy Award for Album of the Year in 1987, but guess who it lost to? Paul Simon. Yeah, Graceland. It was in 2000. It was voted number 82 in Colin Larkin's all-time top 1,000 albums, number 82 out of 1,000. So was remastered in 2002 and partially re-recorded for Gabriel's 2011 orchestral project, New Blood, and issued as a box set in 2012. So, yeah, I was gonna see about see if I can find some of the players here, because I was wondering. It talked about a couple of the players. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so yeah, Tony Levin, freaking awesome bass player. He played with King Crimson and just a lot of people. And he plays that Chapman stick bass, where it's just like this crazy, stringed instrument with just a ton of strings on it, from big old thick, strings all the way to little guitar strings. And you play it with 2 hands, and he was really an innovator of playing that Chapman stick. Very, very cool. Let's see, bass guitar, drums, says drumstick bass, fretting only. Yeah, so I'm not really sure what that means, but there's also there's a bass where you would play with the drumsticks, I think, if I remember correctly. It's drawing a little bit of a recollection. But, there's Jerry Marotta, David Rhodes, Stuart Copeland plays the hi-hat on tracks 1 and 7. Daniel Lanois, just a bunch of people on here, just Kate Bush. There's literally like 50 people involved in the recording of this album, with congas and Nile Rodgers on guitar. So yeah, just very, very cool album, and I think deserving of the #1 spot for sure. Even though Graceland beat it out in awards, it didn't beat it out in my top 6. Not today. Not today, Paul Simon. Not today. But you got my #4 spot, so very important. All right, guys. Let's see. So that's pretty much it. 1986. The Beastie Boys. If you remember back when I started this, 42 minutes ago, Beastie Boys, License to Ill, #6. Genesis, Invisible Touch, #5. Paul Simon, Graceland, #4. Metallica, Master of Puppets, #3. Van Halen, 5152, and of course Peter Gabriel, So #1. All right, so if you like this video, please click the like button, subscribe please, and click the notification bell, because if you don't click the notification bell, you're not going to know when I put new music up, or new not music but videos up. So it's really just like not even subscribing, because you won't know. And if you don't know I'm putting up new videos, then you're not going to watch it, and then it's not going to help me out. And I could use all the help I can get. You know what I'm saying? All right, so remember to go down into the description and check out some of the other ways you can help the channel grow and to help support it financially. And we're going to get that contest rolling here pretty quick. I want to try to get to like 75 likes, and then that way we only have 25 likes to go to get to 100, so I can do the giveaway. So if you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed, please do that so we can kind of move things along. And I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Tomorrow I've got my Jeff Caston's coming on. We're going to do that album review of Rio. I'm really excited for that. And then I'll probably also do 1987 as well. So we'll be through the 80s here real quickly, right through the weekend. I'm sure we'll get it done. And then we'll start into the 90s, which is going to be quite an adventure, because there's a lot of that's going to be a tough one, but there's a lot of music. You're starting to get into the grunge and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that, because there's some great albums, great albums to look forward to. So that's my 1986 picks, top 6 picks as it is. And we will see you guys tomorrow with the Rio review and 1987. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.